My name is Dinesh Vijayasinghe. As the General Secretary of the Colombo City Restaurateurs Collective, on behalf of its Executive Committee and the membership, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this panel discussion jointly organized by the Colombo City Restaurateurs Collective and the Daily FT. Before we begin, I would like to make a mention and thank our sponsors whose cooperation and generosity has made this event possible. First of all, our principal sponsor is MasterCard International, venue partner, Park Street News, hospitality partner, House of Wines, creative partner, Trad in Advertising. That's it. Thank you for your presence here today. To get the program moving, I would now like to invite Mr. Rajesh Mani, Country Manager for Sri Lanka and Maldives for MasterCard International, to do a presentation on the post-pandemic developments for the hospitality industry. Over to you, Mani.
Thanks, Dinesh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me absolute pleasure to be here today and to partner with CCRC and the Daily FT in this deliberation on how we can accelerate the post-pandemic recovery for the hospitality industry. Considering that we have a packed schedule over the next 90 minutes, I will probably walk you through what I'm going to discuss over the next 15 minutes. We will start with walking you through the trends that we are observing across Asia Pacific, across restaurants. Then talk about examples and trends specific to Sri Lanka. Then talk about what we, as stakeholders in this ecosystem, can do to collaborate to accelerate this recovery. And then we'll probably, if we have time permitting, we will talk about a few case studies where MasterCard has done this across regions. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me jump straight in. Now, we are seeing three key trends across restaurants across Asia Pacific. The first being, there is a clear demarcation or streamlining of online and offline digital experience, which means people are making the shift from offline to online. And this is manifesting itself in various forms. The first, you see a lot of restaurants now looking at using QR as a means to make their ordering easy. You see a lot of people blurring the lines, if you may, between the online and offline experience, because we are talking today of one-touch experience. Customers want to go in. If they're doing an online order, they would like to order and make payments in a one-touch experience. So that's the first trend we are seeing. The second one we are seeing is loyalty programs need to be redesigned and refreshed. And we have a lot of colleagues, a lot of my partners from banks who will probably be talking to this topic during the panel discussion. What this again means is there was a conventional method of using traditional marketing techniques where typically you would have a one-size-fits-all approach. Now that is changing. You need to customize your offers to the nth person, if that is possible. The third one is a no-brainer, right? Being restaurateurs yourself, you've realized the cost of carrying a huge inventory, be it in the form of a large menu. Increasingly, that is a burden from a cost perspective, and increasingly customers are looking for a large meal, large ticket, not necessarily large number of menus. And this is something which is forcing a lot of restaurants to come up with more simplified menus and start catering for what they call bundled offers. Now, with these three key trends, what we've also done is we have embellished this with data that MasterCard sees. And I'm talking of primary data here that we get to see across comparable industries. It could be in the form of retail. It could be in the form of grocery, where we use them as surrogates to see how their recovery trends have been and how do they compare against the restaurant business. And using this engagement model, what MasterCard has done is we've come out with 5 key interventions which we use to work with partner associations like yourself across the region. The first one is around providing timely and insightful data, and in my next slide, I will cover something specific to Sri Lanka. We work with a very large retail chain in a large market across the region, across this specific region, in fact. And what we figured out is there is a shift in consumer behavior. Consumers are now doing what's called a stomach spend shift. Instead of going to restaurants for ordering food, they're actually going to grocery stores and picking up frozen food. Now, that is something that we've observed across markets, and you will see in the next slide when I show you about a trend in Sri Lanka, it is comparable with that as well. Now, what does it mean for you? I think we need to, as a team, deliberate and see how do we address this new and emerging challenge. The second one is on digital acquisition. Again, like I told you, increasingly customers are moving to online modes of acquisition, online modes of looking for options. Now, are you present in those channels? Now, how can your partners, be it banks, be it MasterCard, how do we work with you to enable this tool for you? The third one is on loyalty, right? Again, like I was discussing this earlier, we can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. You need to necessarily customize for your customer. I mean, a simple example would be if I were to visit a particular restaurant 3 times a week, I would expect to be treated very differently from a customer who probably visits you once a month. Are you able to recognize that customer? And if so, or if you can't, how do you start doing that? And the fourth and fifth is around a concept called test and learn. How can we collaborate with you to help you test newer concepts and learn from these concepts? If we fail quick, and then we learn from that and start with the new approach. And to give you an example, we work with a very large QSR chain in, again, a very large market, China, in fact, to figure out when they wanted to reopen after the pandemic. They didn't know whether they should open all their outlets. And if they had to open outlets, which were the specific outlets they needed to open? And if they needed to open them, which were the time that they needed to cater to, considering that people work from home? And if they were to do that, what part of their menu do they need to rationalize? Now, we've worked with this quick restaurant chain to bring them up the curve in China. And again, this is something that we can share with you at a later date. Now, I was talking about Sri Lanka's specific data. Now, this is interesting, right? So what we've done here is we've taken 3 categories, which is the restaurant, which is depicted in the red line. We're talking of the grocery chain, which is the green line on top. And then we have the retail stores in the middle. And what we have tried to plot here is the year-on-year growth, spend growth that each of these 3 categories are seeing. You will see that the grocery chain has come back, has rebounded to a positive year-on-year growth, despite having a slump. I guess it's not working. If you look at the 4th month, that's April of last year, you see there's a dip across all sectors, but then retail and grocery has picked up. And if you were to look at this shift in the 10th month, this is the spike I'm telling you, where increasingly we are seeing in different markets, people are starting to shift to grocery chains, even for food items. And I can give you an example of when I was in Singapore last year, and I moved here from Singapore. Towards the early part, I would say April, May, there were instances when grocery stores would run out of stocks around baking needs. We started working with people and we figured out there was a huge intake on people starting to bake at home. What this obviously meant was restaurants who were catering to a baking or a baking house, they would obviously take a hit. Now, these are data and insights that we can bring, and as partners, we can work together to see how do we action them. Again, I'm not saying that there will be a one-size-fits-all. Something might work for A and something else might work for B. But what we can do is come to you with insights and data. Having said that, things are not all that bad. Now, the story, when we compare Sri Lanka with the rest of Asia Pacific, is that there's a huge increase in online transactions for restaurants. So which means there is enough headroom to grow. Point number one, you've grown from a 6% to a 21% in 3 years, which clearly indicates that your consumers are moving online, are becoming digitally savvy. So you need to necessarily have a strategy that addresses this customer segment. So that's the first part. Now, what does this mean for restaurant owners like you? One, you will need to necessarily identify who are your new digital customers. You will need to necessarily target them. One is to figure out who this guy is, right? Who is this so-called digital native person? What is he looking for, and where is he available? I mean, earlier we probably used to use the traditional methods of marketing methods of reaching out to these consumers, but today it's become a completely different approach. So you will necessarily need to work on the digital angle. And if you're looking at growing your share of wallet, you will have to combine this with having a clearly segmented loyalty program. I mean, it could be your in-house loyalty program, it could be a third-party program, but you will necessarily need to have a loyalty program if you want repeat usage from these customers. Now, what do we mean by this? This is just an illustrative slide, so just use it for that purpose only. What we normally recommend is you need to break down your customer segment or your consumer segment into what we call personas, right? I mean, it could be any of these, it could be somebody else, and as banks, as your partners, we can work with you to identify what the ideal customer persona is for your outlet. It could be a person who travels a lot. What does he do? What does that mean? And I have an illustration in the next slide which probably explains this better. And we've just used about 9 personas here. Typically, what your consumer looks like or behaves like. And if we were to profile this persona, like I told you, and we've taken the case of what's called a fashion shopper. What do we mean by this? What does this person spend on? This person spends on fashion, person spends on food, spends on wellness. We know that. And this person does this share of wallet in online and offline. So now if you think that is the person who's typically your target segment, you need to take this one step further and build your customer target segment profile. And how do we do this? We have this in the... Once we figure out what the persona is, and we will say these are the typical character attributes. For instance, if I'm a fashion traveler, oh, I love to buy perfumes, for instance. And this is data that's available with all of us, right? It's a question of how intelligently we look for this data. And once you figure out what this persona is, we can work with a lot of agencies who can add their data element to this to create what's called models of this persona or replicas of this persona. And combined together, we can take them into the demand-side platform. When I say demand-side platform, I'm talking about media platforms like YouTube. It could be Facebook, typically where we see a lot of consumers today engaging for food to talk about their preference. And then come out with an offer that's going to be highly focused and targeted. What I will now talk to you about is spend a couple of minutes discussing some case studies that we've done, actually 3 of them to be precise. One is we worked with a global hotel chain, and they were having huge issues in attracting traffic to their resort in Southeast Asia. So we used the same persona approach, and they gave us specific instances of customers of the target group and the geographies they were looking for. They were looking for people from Australia, New Zealand, and China, and who wanted to come into the Southeast Asia market. So we figured out what the persona was, what does this person like to do, and therefore what's the larger base that that person has, and which is the social media platform that person loves to visit. And we used that to go after those customers with a clearly focused and targeted campaign. And what this meant was we had or rather the customer, in this case, the hotel group, had a 4x growth in their booking rate. The second example is in Indonesia, actually, and again, I think we have some partners here from the banking side. We worked with a bank in Indonesia, and they had an issue around their dining spend. They had a huge drop or a low contribution on dining, if I may use that word. And they also said that they had a huge inactive base. So we worked with them, again used the same persona approach, and figured out a lot of these consumers were looking for specific offers from specific restaurants, specific dining outlets. We worked with them, and what happened was we managed to bring back the inactive base into the books of the bank. And what's more, we were talking of a 20% reactivation rate of the inactive base, if you may. And I'm sorry, currently I'm talking in languages very banking specific, so pardon me for that. And the last example I have, though this is borrowed from India and it's not specific to the restaurant industry, I put this here for a reason. Because what we did here is we used social media influencers, we used celebrities to talk about, and again, we worked with a large chain here to figure out how we can use social media influencers to create brand affinity and brand preference. Now, this could be specific to a restaurant, it could be specific to a chain, or it could even be specific to Colombo as a whole. Right? So there are various methods in which we as a network, your banking partners and the CRC can work together. And I believe collectively, it is our responsibility to ensure that we bring the dining sector back, because in my mind, and we've been working across various regions, and this for me is an indicator of the health of the economy, because end of the day, this is discretionary spend. So the minute a consumer starts picking up a card to go to a restaurant to dine out, you know the economy is going to rebound. I'm happy to take questions at the end of the session, and I think my 15 minutes are up. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be joined by Mr. Runta Pratik, who is the Managing Director and Partner of Boston Consulting Group, via a Zoom link.
Hi, good evening. I hope you can hear me. We have all collected here to talk about beyond discounts in the restaurant and banking industry. I think Rajesh has set the stage very well with giving a few very relevant examples of how we have to think beyond discounts to further this partnership. I'll take a few minutes to also share with you some learnings from across the region on what banks and restaurants together can do to extract the maximum value of working together and building loyalty and stability in their business. Okay, so let me get started. I think Rajesh talked about the fact that historically there have been many collaborations between schemes, issuers, and restaurants to offer attractive offers and discounts to customers to boost the business of restaurants. And obviously banks and schemes also see merit in that. Historically, the benefit to restaurant has been these discounts have boosted footfalls and sales at the restaurant, both from existing customers, but have also attracted new customers. And restaurants have also leveraged bank platforms and also scheme platforms like Rajesh gave examples of, to give personalized offers to customers and give them a proposition to visit the restaurants. For the banks also, it's been quite lucrative. They've managed to boost their card revenues and card volumes, and the endeavor for all banks to give these offers is to become the primary card of the customer, as many customers today have multiple cards in their wallet. So primacy is something which is important to banks. Also, improving the throughput on the card gives banks valuable data, which they can then use to personalize offers that they can give out to their customers. The relationship with merchant and the deepening of the same also gives banks an opportunity to sell more value-added services to merchants. So this not only helps strengthen the retail banking franchise of the banks, but also helps in strengthening the business banking franchise by giving relevant offers to merchants and deepening the share of wallet. We saw a few examples coming in the presentation earlier, but I'm sure many of you are aware this is a global phenomena. And whether we look at global banks around the world, HSBC, Citi, Amex, or even we look at local banks, there are multiple examples in India. And even closer home, we've been seeing HNB, Commercial, NTB, Standard Chartered. Almost everyone currently has some or the other offer running where they're giving relevant discounts, offers to their customers on dining programs, which bring them to the restaurants and increase the footfall as well as the throughput of the restaurants. Now the question is, how beneficial are these discounts both for the restaurant industry and the banking and financial services industry? As has been discussed earlier, clearly these discounts lure customers to come to restaurants. Even existing customers increase their frequency and new customers want to try out new restaurants. So in the short term, it definitely helps in increasing the throughput and the footfall in the restaurants, also gives more transaction volumes and value to the banks. The only flip side is there are a segment of customers who may get used to these discounts and almost become what we call as discount scavengers. And in that case, loyalty holds no value. These customers then easily switch looking for discounts and the entire purpose gets defeated. So the question that we should debate today is what more can the industry do beyond discounts to further the objective of increased throughput, build primacy, and drive loyalty. And basis of what we've seen both in the Asian region and around the world, we believe that the restaurant bank collaboration can go much beyond just plain vanilla discounts. And we have examples of a lot more that banks are doing to drive the objectives that we spoke about. I think first, some of which we already see in Sri Lanka is developing co-branded platforms. These could be co-branded cards, co-branded POS systems, or even storefronts, which helps bank and restaurant come together to drive footfall and revenue. One of the important and effective initiatives that we've seen around the world is to create exclusive platforms, experiences, events, which are only available to the cardholders of a particular issuer. This furthers the objective of driving loyalty, may also subsidize the cost for the cardholder, but is not given in the form of a pure vanilla discount, and thereby the cardholders' switching cost of moving away from the platforms are higher as compared to the case when only plain discounts are given by issuers. As I said earlier, issuers can also use this opportunity to offer value-added services to their restaurant partners where they have relationship. These could cover front-end services as well as back-end services, and I'll give a few examples as we go forward in this presentation. Rajesh talked a lot about creating personas and giving personalized experiences and offers to customers. Now, for restaurants who partner with banks, it's a great opportunity because banks have a lot of data which help them create these personas, like Rajesh was illustrating in the previous presentation. And therefore, this could be a win-win situation where restaurants can target customers with personalized offers, whereby the conversion is much better than just doing a spray and pray campaign across all the customers of a bank. And the other important initiative is that banks have multiple channels to engage with customers. We are seeing that in today's day and age, historical and legacy channels like SMS, phone calls, and even emails are becoming less effective. And therefore, there are new age channels that we have to rely on the internet, on the mobile, in the app, which could be even geolocation based. And that's what restaurants can do when they collaborate with banks or partner with banks. Let me take a few examples to illustrate these pillars that I've spoken about. The first one is quite straightforward. There are many such examples in the world, both on creating co-branded propositions with restaurants. We have multiple examples of co-branded cards or storefronts that banks and restaurants have created. JP Morgan Chase and Starbucks co-branded card is a prime example where they have 16 million plus active reward members on this platform. And 48% of sales of Starbucks in the US today comes from these reward members, which is a very, very sizable number, as you would agree. Even closer home in Singapore, we've seen UOB create a storefront with Gets, which attracts close to 50,000 diners monthly to order on this platform. The other initiative that I spoke about is creating exclusive events or engagements that give the sense of exclusivity to the cardholders. We've seen multiple examples of issuers creating restaurant weeks, gourmet weeks, dining week, where exclusive restaurants are made available to the cardholders, which otherwise they would not have access to. And therefore, it drives loyalty and it drives affinity between the cardholders and the issuers. And the final element is personalization. We've seen many banks around the world, mBank of Poland being a prime example, where banks who know a lot about your spend habits and your consumption habits are able to create personas and thereby drive targeted offers which are more relevant for the customers and have therefore higher conversion than generic offers. The other element is how do banks leverage their relationship with restaurants? What more can banks offer to restaurants? And we've seen multiple examples where banks are moving beyond just pure banking services to offering value-added services to restaurants. At the front end, this could include platforms which enable table reservation, online ordering, menu card digitization, loyalty and bill splitting. And at the back end, for the merchants or the restaurants, it could mean offering them payroll services, inventory services, accounting services, or even employee management services. These are becoming quite common around the world, and they strengthen the relationship between the bank and the restaurants. The other element is personalization. Again, I will not belabor the point. Rajesh already talked about creating personas. We have many examples of restaurants around the world who've moved beyond plain vanilla discounting to giving personalized offers based on the information that they have about the customer. Now, you can imagine that if we were to combine the information that the restaurants have and the banks have, this information base would become much richer and help us create rich persona and also help us therefore do targeting offering. Some examples on this page are about Starbucks, McDonald's, Taco Bell, who already do personalized offering. And this is something that the banks can collaborate much better with restaurants and therefore help them drive more targeted offer to their customer set, which ultimately results in better conversion. We've seen 5 to 15% uplift of sales on total business. We've seen churn reduction, and we've definitely seen a much better engagement between restaurants and their customers. The last point is, how do you get these offers across to your customers? Historically, most restaurants have relied on SMS, in some cases even email. But with a lot of junk now hitting these two channels, we are seeing much lesser conversion than what we would see a few years back. Therefore, what becomes important now is social media, in-app notifications, wallet notifications, and even geolocation-based restaurant offers. Banks have a lot of information, and banks own these channels where they have high engagement from customer on these channels. So if restaurants and banks were to come together, we would see much more effective communication that restaurants can do with their customers. To summarize, discounts definitely help attract new customers, but in the long run, they may not be sustainable, both from the restaurant perspective and from the bank perspective, as they make customers discount dependent, and the loyalty element is not experienced to the extent that we would like. We are seeing banks interact with restaurants in many new ways, including experiential events, co-branded cards, value-added services like point of sale and personalized offers. These collaborations help both restaurants and banks acquire new customers and boost sales. Also, we are seeing a shift in communication strategy with new gen channels like app notifications, social media, and geolocation-based offers replacing traditional channels. Therefore, we feel that there is a very strong future for a collaboration between the banking industry and the restaurant industry to take the proposition much beyond discounts and make it more sustainable for both the parties involved, and at the same time, give great engagement and affiliation to the customers of banks and restaurants. I'll stop the presentation here. If there are any questions, happy to take. Otherwise, all the best for the panel discussion.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions for Mr. Pratik? Looks like there's none. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to me.